In the first chapter of Kima Kima, we learned that Geula is a process. It's a miraculous process, but it's clothed to look like a natural process. And we explained why it had to be slowly. However, how are we supposed to recognize this process? סימני המגולה. What is the revealing of the signs of the redemption? So the Gemara in Sanahdrin, Rabbi Abba says, it gives us the sign. Ein lecha kates megule mizeh. There is no greater revelation of the coming redemption, or the beginning of the process of redemption. Shenemar, as it says, Vatem hare Israel, and you, this is the pasuk from Yahzekal, and you, the mountains of Israel. Anpechem titnu, give out your limbs. The trees should grow limbs. ופריכם תשאו, and raise up your fruit. לעמי Israel, for my people Israel, כי קרבו לבוא, because they are soon going to be coming. And Rashi, on the spot in the Gemara, explains, כשתתן ארץ ישראל פירותיה בעין יפה, when Eretz Israel gives its fruit in good measure, as יקרב hakates, this is showing that the kates, the end of days, is coming. ואין hakates megula mizeh, and there is no greater revelation of the coming redemption than this. The sign, the absolute sign of the fulfillment of the prophecy of Yahzekal is going to be that the Jewish people, Am Yisrael, returns to Eretz Israel. And from its part, Eretz Israel has to start giving fruit, has to start giving food, produce, for Klal Yisrael to have when it arrives, right? You can't arrive into a void. Things have to be there for it. But you have to ask, where did Rabbi Abba get his words from? Why is this such a powerful sign that of the first step of the redemption? The Maharsha on our Gemara explains, Lefi shekol zman she'en Yisrael al Admתם, because as long as the Jewish people isn't on their land, ein haaretz nosenes perosaha k'darka, Eretz Israel won't give her fruit, won't give her produce, her vegetables, grains, everything, in her normal way. Aber כשתחזור ליתן פירותיה, but when she starts giving her fruit again, zeyu kates megule. This is the revelation that soon Klal Yisrael is going to return to Eretz Israel, and it's going to start the process of redemption. In order to properly understand in depth the words of the Maharsha, we have to go back and look at the Torah, look at Chumash. Everything comes from Chumash, of course. And Parshas B'chukosai, the Torah explains all of in the Tochacha, the rebuke there, all of the horrible things, God forbid, that are going to come unto the Jewish people if they do not listen and they do not fulfill the words of the Torah and its mitzvahs. Among this, Perek Chavav Pasuk Lamed Beis, it says, V'hashemosi ani es haaretz, and I have made the land desolate, v'shamamu aleha oivechem, and your enemies will be desolate upon it, hayoshrim ba, that are living in it. At first, this looks like it's just another curse, right? But Rashi views this in a different way. He quotes the Sifra, the halachic medrash on Sefer Vayikra from the time of the Tanaim, from the time of the Mishnah. So Rashi quotes, Vashimosi ani es haaretz, and I will make the land desolate. Zu mida tova liYisrael. This is a good sign to Klal Yisrael. Shelo yimtzu ha'oivim nachas ruach ba'artzam. That the nations of the world won't find nachas ruach in the land that belongs to Bnei Yisrael. They won't find any pleasantness. That'll be only tough for them there. Shitei shomemeha miyoshveha. It will be desolate from its inhabitants. What appears as a curse is in fact a bracha. The meaning of this is that as long as we do not return to our land, also our enemies won't be able to settle it properly either. And as we've said, the source of Rashi is in the Sifra on Bechukosai, and this was written very shortly, within 100 years of the time of Churban Bayis, right? And it seems that Chazal saw already that even though the Romans had clearly conquered the land and destroyed the temple and so on, they weren't able to really do anything with it. The land didn't produce for them as it had for us. The Ramban, who lived over 1,000 years after the Churban Bayis, more like 1,100 years after the Churban Bayis, he himself, at the end of his life, made Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael, and he saw the desolation of Eretz Yisrael at that time. And he wrote in his Perush on our pasuk, Masha Amar Bekan, what the Torah says here, V'shamu aleha oivechem, and it will be desolate for your enemies. He besura tova. This is good news. Mevaseret b'chol hagaliyos, the news has been given throughout all of our exiles. Shein artzenu mekabelas es oivenu, that our land will not accept our enemies. V'gamzu raya gedola v'haftacha lanu, and this is also a great source of proof of that there will finally be a redemption and a guarantee to us. Ki lo timtza b'chol hayishuv eretz asher hi tova rechava. There is no place in the settled world that is as good as Eretz Yisrael, is as widespread as Eretz Yisrael. Vayisher haisano sheves me'olam, that was once settled, v'chariva kamoa, and it's completely desolate now. V'kulam mishtadlim lo shiva ve'en le'el yadam, and all of these nations who have conquered it have tried to develop it, have tried to make something of it, but their hands do not have the ability to do this. It's interesting, and we have to stress the phrase that the Rambam used, Ein artzenu mekabelas es oivenu. Our land does not accept our enemies. The Ramban relates to Eretz Yisrael as if it has a personality, so to speak, right? It will accept people or not accept people, right? Eretz Yisrael, Torah Yisrael, Am Yisrael, there's a connection between all of them. In the Hadran, we talk about the Torah will come back to us. The Torah's Chaim, it's living. So too, the land of Eretz Yisrael is a living land. It's alive. The beginning of the 8th parak of Mikvos, the Mishnah says, Eretz Yisrael tahora u'mikvosaha tahora. The land of Israel is tahor and its mikvos are tahor. There's something unique about Eretz Yisrael that's not true about any other land. And therefore, our enemies don't get to benefit from the fruits of Eretz Yisrael like we do. Eretz Yisrael is not the only place on the world that was destroyed at one point or another during the course of the last few thousand years. Other places have been as well, but they've all been resettled, rebuilt over the time. And it's not that people didn't want to settle Eretz Yisrael, as the Ramban says. People did. It's just the kulam mishtadlim liosh shiva ve'en le'el yadam. All of them tried to settle it, but they didn't have the power to do it. More than this, Eretz Yisrael stayed desolate when entire continents were discovered that had much, much smaller populations when Western people discovered them than they do now, and it's grown and developed. And all that growth and development, when it happened there, say up until 1850, there was no development, no successful development in Eretz Israel. Rabbeinu Bachai, who was a Talmid of a Talmid, a student of the Ramban, wrote his commentary on Chumash more than 700 years ago. And he makes the same point. Sha'af hayoshvim ba yinhagu shmama alaha. Even those people that were living in it, it was still desolate for them. Shelo yivnu alaha choma umigdal. They never built on it a wall and a tower. V'kola umos yishtadlu livnosa. All the nations tried to build it. Ve'en lam koach, but they didn't have the strength. V'yesh b'zei siman gadol Yisrael. This is a great sign to Israel. Shemiyom shecharva lo kibla umah v'lashon. From the time that Eretz Israel was destroyed, the Jews were driven out of it, it has not accepted any other nation and language. V'lo tikabel ad sheyashuvu efrocha lesocha. And it will not accept them until her chicks return to her. The incredible description that Rabbeinu Bachai gives is, we see in nature that there are birds that will make a nest, and that will be their nest for their entire lives. But we've never heard of a nest that won't let any other birds in it. If those birds aren't there, it doesn't prevent other birds from taking over that nest. However, Eretz Israel is a unique nest, according to the Rabbeinu Bachai. It remains faithful to its chicks that were exiled from it. It's very interesting, the phrase Rabbeinu Bachai used, Shelo yivnu alaha choma umigdal, that no one built upon it a wall and a tower. In the 3 years before the Second World War, there were very significant riots in Eretz Israel, Arab riots against the Jews. And during this time, we, the Jewish people, built dozens of settlements. A bunch of people would go, and overnight they would erect a wall and a watchtower. And then they build the rest of the settlement inside the wall. And to a very large extent, the borders of Eretz Israel, of Medinas Israel, state of Israel, I should say, were defined, at least initially, before the 6-Day War, by these settlements of Migdal v'Choma. We know that Chachamim are given, great Talmidei Chachamim are given a certain amount of Ruach HaKodesh, of the divine inspiration. It's clear that when Rabbeinu Bachai wrote this, Shelo yivnu alaha choma migdal, that no nation was able to build upon it a wall and a tower. It's somehow foreshadowing this development that would happen so much later, about 10 years before the State of Israel was declared, that, as I said, defined the borders, our borders. We have in our hands knowledge from the generation of the destruction of the temple, from the Sifra that Rashi mentioned, that was the situation then. The land was becoming more and more desolate all the time, and no one was able to take it over. And the Ramban says this was the situation when he arrived there as well, when he lived in Eretz Israel. And Rabbeinu Bachai adds a little to it. There is a poem that the Ramban wrote. There is a poem the Ramban wrote. They don't. And just a second. This is from the not from the Ramban, I'm sorry, here it is. No, I have it. Im kol zeh, and with all of this, the Ramban wrote. It's a prayer, a poem about the destruction of Yerushalayim. Masu b'cha ogvim. It hated those that loved you. V'shamamu aleha oivim. And it was desolate for your enemies. Umirchakim yizkarucha. And from far away, they will remember you, meaning the Jewish people that are in exile. Vitparu be'ir hakadosha. And they will find glory in the holy city. Lemor. Lanu natsna lemorasha. To us it was given as an inheritance. V'kasher yavo alacha umatsa'u kol machbedei ayin. And when they come and they find all of these luscious things there, yivarchu mipnei oyev v'deif ayin. They will flee as if from an enemy, but no one is pursuing them. Meaning all the people that try and take the wonderful things that Eretz Israel has, they won't succeed. V'rabah ha'azuva b'kerev ha'aretz hashmena u'rechava. And great is the abandonment in the midst of the land that is so fat and wide and good. Ki hem einam hagunim lach. They are not fitting for you. V'gam at einach re'uyim lahem. And also you, the nations of the world, are not fit for you. The land of Israel isn't fit for them. Ir tehila tachas heyotcha gila va'amech masos betchila. The city that originally, that you were once so happy, and that your nation that rejoiced in you at the beginning. Re'isi hayom yoshveha nenachim v'nenakim. I see now how your inhabitants are krechs, sighing, suffering. V'hema nimakim, and they are becoming thin and worn out. L'melot davar Hashem diber, to fill the word that God said, Hashimosi aniyas haaretz, I have made the land desolate, v'shamamu aleha oivechem, and it will be desolate for your enemies, hayoshrim ba, that try to settle within it. When the people came from Yerushalayim originally to settle Petach Tikva, the first agricultural settlement in Eretz Israel, they came and they brought a doctor to see whether it's possible to settle this land that they had purchased. And in Zechronot Eretz Israel, Avraham Ya'ari, who was one of the original settlers of Petach Tikva, said, Harofei kava, the doctor established, fixed, Mavet b'mkomazeh, there is death in this place. Kan chaim lo yochlu lihitkayem, here life cannot be. Hu isbiras devarav, he explained his words. Eineni roeh b'chol hasviva shum zecher l'chaim. I don't see anything here that has a remembrance of lice. Lo behema, not animals. Lo tzipur, not birds. Velo zavuv, not even a fly. Siman shechayim einam efsharim kam. This is a sign that life is not possible here. Kach achen haisa hametziut az. This was what it was like. Umitzius zu hishtanta lechalutin me'az sheshavnu l'artzenu v'yashavnu osa. But the situation changed completely, totally, from the time that we returned to our land and we dwelled in it. There is also a famous song of about Rabbi Yoel Moshe Solomon, who was one of the founders of Petach Tikva. Mi iver asher tachu einav mirot, who is blind, who does not allow his eyes to see. Or achzar asher yikshiach levavo lemor, or he hardens his heart to say, ki lo yad Hashem pa'ala kol zos, that is not the hand of God that did this. Halo einenu haraos, do our eyes not see? Ki artzenu zos, that this our land, b'chol hayamim asher avru aleha, all the days that passed over it, miyom baneha yatsua, from the time that your children left it. Od techasei, it is still covered with sackcloth. Tered bebechi, it goes down crying. Asapra nagha, it's sighing. Nistara ba'arfel, it was covered in fog. Lo esira bigdei al menusa, it never took off its garments of widowhood. Visilmas avlusa lo hechlifa, the garments of mourning she did not change. Lo hitiva panaha, she didn't improve her face. Velo karu befuch enaha, she didn't use mascara on her eyes. Lo titen lazarim kocha v'nuv ta lenochrim, she did not give herself to the strangers, or the strength of her produce to strangers. V'kagorel baneha, and like the lot of her children, nidchei pzureha, those scattered people. Asher begoyim lo yargiu, and among the nations they did not get rest. U'menacha lo yimatzu, and ease they did not find. Ken gorala v'ken manas halka, so too was her lot, and this was her portion. Achat diver elokim u'shtaim zu shamati, one thing God said, but two I heard. V'shamu alaha oivechem, and it will be desolate for your enemies. Begoimahem lo targiu, with those nations they will not find rest, they will not find ease. Ad ki, until be'es hechelu seride baneha lechonei nafra, until the remnant of her children will find grace in her land. Matza'ua chareva u'shemema, they find her destroyed and desolate. Kiyom azvuha ovosenu, like the day that our forefathers abandoned her. Tzia v'afel kisu paneha, excrement and dirt covered her face. Shama v'siya al kol harareha, desolation and isolation on all of her mountains. Sadeh hamutoseha azvos, her wonderful fields, her precious fields have been abandoned. Ucharmei gafaneha zenuchos, and her vineyards were abandoned. V'shmonas asar me'ot shana shikula, and for 1,800 years she was barren. Lo he'etziu koach lehetiv mitzvah ulivnos harisosaha, she did not do anything to improve her position, to build the broken buildings. Va'ach hechalu b'necha lavo shareha, but when her children began to come to her gates, lishkon chadareha, to dwell in her houses, ha'ach, woe, tirena einenu yafei nof, our eyes have seen a wonderful view, masos madenu, to rejoice in what is beloved to us, la'at le'at, little by little, tasir tseif al menusa, take off the veil of your widowhood, tachlitz shade lahanik gureha, take your breast to nurse your cubs, titnair ma'afar shimumosaha, shake off the dirt of your desolation, titzafes besimlas klulosaich, and cover yourself in a wedding dress. We see it's exactly what the Navi Yahzekal, what the Gemara talked about. This is said in much more poetic and longer terms, but it's the same idea. The land was desolate until her children came back to her. And we have, of course, the famous American artist Mark Twain, writer Mark Twain, 15 years before the establishment of Petah, he had sort of run out of steam with ideas, and so he took a long trip abroad. And most of it is Europe. The book called Innocents Abroad. One chapter is on Eretz Israel. And I remember between 20 and 25 years ago, I was at Rav Druckman Zatzal's house for Shabbos. I was listening to the Motzi Shabbos Shir, 11 o'clock to midnight, and he was reading this quote in Hebrew, and he would say where the quote was from at the end, and I knew it, but I couldn't place it at all. And at the end he said Mark Twain. And of course in Hebrew it was not the way I had ever read Mark Twain. I have found the exact quote that the Rav has translated into Hebrew, but I will not try and read the Hebrew and then translate it. We'll just suffice with English. A desolate country whose soil is rich enough, but is given over wholly to weeds. A silent, mournful expanse, a desolation. We never saw a human being on the whole route, hardly a tree or shrub anywhere. Even the olive tree and the cactus, those fast friends of worthless soil, had almost deserted the country. A fast walker could go outside the walls of Jerusalem and walk entirely around the city in an hour. I did not know how else to make one understand how small it is. We have another description from 19 years before that, from an English professor, John Foster Dawson. He was also an English army officer and did a survey of Eretz Israel. I was not able to find the original English. I assume he did not write originally in Hebrew, but I have the translation into Hebrew here, which I'll read in Hebrew and translate. Ad hayom hazeh, until this day, lo hitzlichu shum umah lehispaseis ke'umah be'eretz Israel. No nation has been successful in establishing itself in Eretz Israel. Shum achdut leumit v'shum ruach leumit lo kana lehem achizah. No nationality and not some spirit of a nation has been able to acquire themselves a portion here. Oh, so Erev Rav shel Shvatim Medudalim, this Erev Rav, this mixed multitude of scattered tribes, Shiashvu ba, that live in it, Hechziku ba rak ka'arisim stam. They are like tenant farmers in it. Kabali maraim, temporary owners. Shekafia nirei ba'alil, as it appears clearly, hem mechakim le'elu hazakim leba'lut keva al hadama. They are waiting for the people that have a real claim to this land. How different it is to hear these descriptions of Eretz Israel before we started returning to the land, and how we see it now. It's something that's entirely different. To complete the circle, in Parshas Lech Lecha, the Rabbeinu Bachai writes, Bereshis Yud Zayin Chaf Dalet, V'nesati lecha elazaracha acharachas eretz megurecha, as kol eretz Canaan lechuz azolam, and I have given to your descendants after you the land that you dwell in, the entire land of Canaan, for an eternal, literally clinging to, but we normally translate it as inheritance. That's the pasuk. Rabbeinu Bachai says, Bi'er shetiyeh haaretz liYisrael achuzat olam. He explains that Eretz Israel is to be an eternal inheritance. Shelo yershuha v'lo yoshivuha rakem, that no one will inherit it and no one will be able to live in it other than them. Ve'imu la yiglu mimenu, and if perhaps they are exiled from it, yashuvu aleha, they will return to it. Ki achuzat olam hilahem, because it is an eternal inheritance to them. Lo le'umos ha'olam, not to the nations of the world. V'zehu siman gadol liYisrael, and this is a great sign to Israel. Shemiyom shegalu mimenu, from the time that they are exiled from it, lo nisyashvu sham uma klal, no nation has been able to truly settle it. Aval hi charva ushmeima, but it is destroyed and desolate. Ad shiashuvu efrocha ha lesocha, until her chicks return to it. And we, in our generations, can see that this has in fact happened, and it's still happening. We're still developing the Eretz Israel, and we're still having more and more people returning to Eretz Israel.